What if I told you Yu-Gi-Oh had a new format that actually welcomed players to the game? What if there was a format that actually attempted to balance advance, bringing new hope to the TCG OCG without changing the card base? What if someone finally put a stop to the whole Yu-Gi-Oh is dying news cycle? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what quantum dueling might finally solve. So without further delay, let's hop straight to the all-new quantum format for 2026. Alright, so let's start off with what is quantum dueling. So quantum dueling has a new set of base rules. You can only have a maximum of 2 copies of any one card in your main deck. The universal limit of 3 still applies. You must have at least 10 monsters in your main deck. There's a new dimension summoning mechanic that applies to the extra deck, as well as a new deck zone, similar to an extra deck, but one that mirrors deck masters. All other base rules are directly reflected in the official TCG/OCG format, including banned and restricted cards. The rules for dimension summoning are the following. Dimension summons are special summons that can only consist of normal summoned monsters when accessed from the new quantum zone. Each player declares 3 cards to be in the quantum zone. These 3 cards must be monsters, cannot be extra deck monsters, ritual monsters, or pendulums. If any of these 3 monsters are dimension summoned to the field, all summoning conditions apply. You must spirit link to add attack and defense to a dimension summoned monster. You can only dimension summon from your quantum zone twice per match. You can only dimension summon twice per turn. And you cannot dimension summon until your second main phase 1. How does spirit links work? You can pay life points to add X attack or X defense between 0, 50%, and 100% of a dimension summoned monster's original attack and defense. You only pay for the position it was summoned in. The other value is automatically filled, rounded up if it is a decimal. So here are some examples of some cards that can and cannot be in your quantum zone. Hinokage Tsuchi cannot be dimension summoned from your quantum zone because the card states that it cannot be special summoned, while Slifer the Sky Dragon can be normal summoned and thus can go in your quantum zone. And Blackluster Soldier states that it cannot be normal summoned nor set, and thus also cannot be one of the 3 cards that exist in your quantum zone. Damage calculation. Neither player takes trade damage when a dimension summoned monster battles another monster. Instead, they take damage equal to the attack or defense of the destroyed monster. Attack if in attack mode, defense if in defense mode, similar to piercing. If a dimension summoned Slifer the Sky Dragon has 8,000 attack and defense and attacks into a special summoned Blackluster Soldier, if the Blackluster Soldier is summoned in attack position, the controller will lose 3,000 life points equal to its attack, and vice versa. If Blackluster Soldier was summoned in defense mode, whenever it combats a dimension summoned monster, it will take its defense stat in piercing damage. How Spirit Link works. So when you dimension summon, you can summon a monster at 0%, 50%, or 100% of its attack points. You can also burst summon the monster, which equals 100% spirit plus half your life points. So here we have the example of Earthbound Immortal Chachu. If you summon it at 0%, 0 times 2900 is 0. Half of 2900 is 1450, and 100% is its normal attack stat. Dimension equips and material ruling. A monster equipped with a dimension summon monster, or a monster using a dimension monster as material, are also considered dimension summon monsters. Thus, all dimension summoning mechanics apply. For example, if you special summon 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon from your main deck, and in addition play a dimension summoned Blue Eyes White Dragon from your quantum zone. If you use them as material to make Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, for example, the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon will be treated as a dimension summon, and thus all summoning mechanics apply, which means you have to use spirit in order to attribute its attack and defense accordingly. If you dimension summon a monster at 100% spirit, all abilities of that monster are negated. If an effect monster is dimension summoned, its effects can only be accessed at 0 and 50% spirit. unless you burst summon it. All effect monsters that have the attack or defense of 0, X, or question mark must pay an additional 2,000 life points to be dimension summoned. At the end phase, return the attack and defense of these monsters specifically back to their original attack and defense. If you summon a card from the extra deck that has Drift, you must declare it as a dimension summon. You can add 100% spirit to any extra deck monster that has Drift plus half your life points in order to burst summon that card without dimension summoning drawbacks and have all your effects intact. Damage calculation returns to normal under burst summoning. Drift card classification. What makes a monster card have Drift? A monster has Drift if it contains the following: cards that list you can destroy, banish an opponent's blank/all cards on the field. Cards that list cannot be destroyed, targeted, or unaffected by card effects /by battle. And cards that list a negate. This includes any variation of these terms. Essentially, cards that have Drift are cards that list some form of interruption in its card text. Here are some examples. Because Ruddy Rose Dragon in its card text includes a banish, a destroy, and a negate, making it a card that has Drift. Because all these extra deck cards contain some form of Drift, you must declare them as dimension summons and pay the additional costs associated with their summons. So here are some examples on how you can use Spirit. If you summon Ruddy Rose Dragon at 0 or 50%, it is less damage, but it gives you access to all effects, and the dimension summoning, while weaker, will still deal piercing defense damage. So to recap, there are 2 balance changes, there are 6 dimension summoning rules, and 3 types of Drift, and 5 rules for dimension summoning with Drift. Hey, what's up everybody? Alright, so we're going to be using Yubel Fiendsmith as our example here today, just to show you guys that in the Quantum format, you don't actually need to take your deck apart. You can experiment for yourself and still keep your main engine as if you were playing regular or advanced. So let's start with Phantom of Yubel. So under Quantum Dueling, Phantom of Yubel would have to be declared as a dimension summon monster. But because it has attack and defense of 0/0, the minimum requirement to dimension summon this monster would be to pay 2,000 life points. Now let's take a look at a common card used in the format. Caesar in this deck, it says when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster. Quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card. Negate the activation, thus it has N Drift. It is a Drift classified card. So when you summon Caesar, you have to declare it as a dimension summon monster, and in order to keep this negation effect on Caesar, you have to summon it at half power or 0 power. If you summon it at 100% spirit by paying 2,800 life points, you will essentially lose all of the effects and you can use it as a 2,800 beater, but you do not get the best of both worlds. So this is another way in which dimension summoning is fair and balanced. But this might be a little too much. Yu-Gi-Oh is a duel. It is one of the fastest games, similar to a quick draw duel. That's why burst summoning exists. So you can burst this for 100% spirit at 2,800. So you'll take 2,800 and then you'll additionally pay half your life points in order to get the best of both worlds with this card. It is no longer free, it is no longer toxic, and you're going to have to strategically decide, do I want the effect or do I want it to be a vanilla beater to just swing for game, or do I need the effect in order to remove enough things from the field and be able to push through to win on this critical turn. Quantum Dueling actually solves a lot of the issues that exist in advanced format currently. Unlike Genesis, unlike Edison, unlike GOAT, you can still use all of these modern cards. This format doesn't take any cards away from your ability to use them. It just makes you use them in a more cost-heavy and efficient way. And maybe some of you guys are wondering, oh, well, Quantum format might not be for me because then it's going to slow down the general pace of the game. It's going to limit my combo potential. It's going to limit my setup, and then my end boards aren't going to look the same, and thus I'm not going to have as much fun. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of main deck in-engine mechanics that give you a bunch of fodder and a bunch of gas for tribute summoning, ritual summoning, etc. The support over the years has exponentially increased the pace of Yu-Gi-Oh to the point where it doesn't really go past turn 2, and most of the time, maybe a good 60% of the time, doesn't go past turn 1. This is not to say this is a blanket nerf on the extra deck, because there are extenders in the extra deck that do not list destruction, banish, negate, or something that's unaffected by card effects. There are just regular extenders in decks. Repro Reprodokus is an extender in the Yubel Fiendsmith deck that does not list anything and does not classify itself as end drift, so therefore it can just be summoned as normal from your extra deck. Reprodokus is fine to set up on turn 1. Reprodokus will do in the deck is just declare a different attribute for Yubel in order to transition into your Fiendsmith side of the deck. So this is an extremely healthy card. It is an extender, it still gives you gas, and it doesn't have dimension summoning drawbacks, and guess what, it's a mainstay in Yubel's Fiendsmith that's probably not going to go away for a while. So this card is incredibly fine, and you can just play it as normal. So there are ways around these dimension summoning restrictions. It's just if you really need to play this negate or this giant boss monster, you're really going to have to think about what resources you're willing to expend on the turn in which you decide to put it out. Currently, Dueling Book is the only possible way in which you can experiment with this quantum format using custom cards. The card base and the official ban list / limited list is still the same for TCG and OCG, so when you create these custom cards, they still have to be normal summon regular monsters that are actually in the game, right? It's just going to eat up 3 of your extra deck slots, but if you play IRL, then obviously you don't have those limitations. So I encourage everybody to try this format out. I think it's really fun and healthy and balanced, and I think it's a really good way for veteran players that play at a high level or competitive level, to actually come in and teach new players that want to get into the game that have an unhealthy online experience where they're just consistently getting FTK, OTK turn 2, and just perma-locked out of even taking a single action in their first turn. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Just as a culture, as a community, should wind down in terms of intensity and give Quantum format a fair shot. And that was Quantum Dueling, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for watching and listening to the end, and I really hope that you guys take the opportunity to try this format out. And hopefully this format catches on to where it's big enough to introduce a healthy environment for new incoming players. If there were any confusions or any type of complications that you would like further details on, let me know in the comments below, and in the description will be a link to this presentation for you to download this as a PDF for yourselves and hopefully have a lot of fun doing so. So to the future of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is Alan4G signing off.